The progressive drawing. So we are $160 for this week. To Sonia Virgo.
Sonia.
Is there Sonia on? Nope, no Sonia. Ooh, so 180 next week.
Everyone bites it.
Last thing you knew.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is better.
Your odds are actually there.
Once they get pulled out, are you done? Yeah.
So once they are pulled, they are put into here. Once someone wins, these go back in. So, yes. Yes, you are in here. Yes, you can. There's one more. All right, so today we have, the text said sales formula, but we changed it to, Austin changed it to the value formula is today's training.
Yeah. So Alex Ramosi is the one that came up with this. He's an entrepreneur, helps a lot of businesses. He came out with this a couple of years ago. It's called the sales equation. Kind of thinking about the sales, Jackie asked what to call it in our title, and I said sales equation because that's what it is. And then kind of thinking about it yesterday, I feel like sales gets a bad rap because people typically correlate sales with somebody trying to one up somebody for their own benefit or trying to persuade. Well, obviously in our industry, that's not what we're doing. We're providing value, and that's our service. So this equation not only helps with it helps bring the most value to our clients. And how do we do that? We got to understand everything about them, their dreams, their concerns, everything about the situation. This is what the sales equation goes over: is how do we figure out everything and all their needs up front to provide the most value, because everyone's different. So this is what it's going to go over. And open book, any questions, any ideas? Would love to hear what you guys do as far as adding value to your clients so we could all learn from it. So hop in, ask questions, give ideas as much as possible. Love that. If you guys have a pen and paper too, it'd be great to write down. Jackie could probably send this out too if you guys need, or take pictures, whatever the easiest. Here's the sales equation. We'll go over each one, what they mean, and collab on ideas of how to provide value. So we got dream outcome, times perceived likelihood of achievement, over time delay, and effort and sacrifice. So the top there, you can see we're trying to increase the dream outcome and perceived likelihood of achievement as much as possible. The bottom, time delay and effort and sacrifice, we're trying to decrease as much as possible. And ultimately that'll equal the value we give to our clients. Next one's good. Do you guys want some time to write them down?
One more sec, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Good. Next slide. Go. Oh. Yeah.
So the top of the equation, we have dream outcome, and we're trying to, both of these, we're trying to increase as much as possible. So what's the dream outcome? How will this improve my life? That's what they're wanting to know, and that's what we need to figure out. We're trying to close the gap between their current reality and their dreams. The dream is usually linked to their biggest pain points, so it's our job to tie them together and remind them. This is a question I always ask up front. You know, I've built my business around cold calling a lot, but it doesn't have to be a cold call. It would be your first conversation with the client. It's, hey, what's your dream outcome here, right? It's, you know, we want to move here, we want more land, whatever it is. Well, what does that do for your family? And I ask them, what does this move mean for your family? And it's all about peeling back layers with clients. Everyone's scared to, you know, give out all their personal information, but the more we can peel back that onion, also the likelihood they don't want to share all of this information with a whole other agent. So I feel like the more we could pull out of them, the more committed they're subconsciously being to us as well. So dream outcome is obviously the biggest thing we're trying to figure out. And along with that, it's their pain points, and usually they're linked together. So it's, you know, whatever situation that may be, figuring out their pain points, and then using that as like a constant reminder, because, you know, it's an emotional, any sell is an emotional sell, where it's an investment property, which is long-term personal property. It's an emotional decision, emotional move, and they'll go back and forth. We see it all the time, right? So the more we could reminding them of that dream outcome and their pain points, the more we keep them afloat and steady throughout the transaction. Does that make sense? Perceived likelihood of achievement. So how likely is this to happen? People will value you more if they believe that you will make their dream reality. How we can do that, use client testimonials, use your credentials, past stories related to their situation. I've had agents where, not every agent's been in the industry for 20 years, so it's like, how do I use stories if I've only done 3 or 4 deals in my lifetime, right? And, confidence factor goes into that, but what I tell people too is if you're on a team, use your team leader's stories, use the people around you. It doesn't have to be necessarily your transaction, but you've been involved with it, just listen to someone else. Use other people's stories. You don't have to have 30 homes under your belt to give, your credentials. So big fan of just using testimonies from, whether it's your own testimonies or other people around you. Obviously, we have Sarah, who's been around the game for forever, and she's an open book too. So we got to increase their perceived likelihood of achievement. Other thing is too, I feel like in every industry or every market, whether it's a seller's market or it's a buyer's market, there's always an excuse to not do the thing, right? And that's where it's our job, because we're professionals, and that's why people hire professionals. We got to remind them this is what we do for a living, and we get it done. More often than not, the clients I've had where they doubted and they use excuses like, there's not a lot of buyers out there, or whatever the case may be. Really, they just lack the confidence that it's actually going to happen, because it's a huge deal, especially if it's a personal property and they're looking to sell their property, move that. They don't think it's likely to happen. So it's our job to bring the confidence and show them, hey, I can make this happen for you. So the more that they could believe that their likelihood of achievement is high with you, that you'll get their business. And I feel like that's the biggest. Kind of thing that we got to get through to them. They want someone that they know that get the job done. That's why we're here. That's why they're going to go to a FISBA, because we've seen how that turns out. So, any questions regarding these two? So trying to increase these as much as possible. Dream outcome and perceived likelihood of achievement.
Also, other than just sort of having testimonials chambered to use when you meet with people, do you use them in other ways in sort of marketing? Do you post them? How do you get testimonials from people? Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah. I'm not the best at doing this, but I think it's great. Every transaction within 3 days is getting a client testimony. What I would like to do, I've been wanting to do it for some time, but I've even seen people where they'll do a video of their client, after the fact, and say, hey, tell me about your experience. And I feel like those go a long way. I haven't done that yet. That's something I'd like to incorporate in my business, a little short video of a client. Hey, they got us, Austin got us from A to Z here. This is how we did it. This communication was great. So that's one thing I kind of noted down that I'd like to do in the future is a video, because we know how social media is, people love videos, and that'll go a long ways. But I feel like bare minimum is at least getting a client testimonial after you close. And there's a time period of doing so, because they get swarmed with, if they're moving into new property, utilities, everything gets swarmed, and they're busy decorating and stuff. So I think the ideal is within 3 days of that escrow close and getting a client testimonial fresh in their head, right? And posting good. I always bring it up, for my listing and my buyer's packet that I bring out a page of 4 or 5 client testimonies just to throw in there and leave with them. So it goes a long ways. Not sure if that answers your question.
It does. It just seems they're hard to ask for sometimes. Like you're saying, they're swamped. They're moving, their kids are going crazy, they got relatives everywhere unpacking.
It is.
And it's like, hey.
A good time is when you give them their little closing gift.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, I really appreciate it, it really helps me, and they feel like they're helping you.
Anytime. Honestly, I sent requests a year later and they'll still send them.
Send it.
Yeah, as long as I make it convenient and easy for them to go and put in the
Send a text
review,
reminder.
that's all they care about.
Yeah.
So if I send them a quick link that says, hey, do me a favor, jump on here and give me a review, they jump in and do it.
Something I was kind of talking to Rocky about too, like what's the most effective way about getting it? Is it sending them a Google review? Is it sending them a Zillow? We don't want to send them 5 different links that write the same testimony. Rocky's suggestion was Google reviews, because those go the longest. Having your name top, so that's what I'm gonna start doing. I did that at the coast with Google. I feel like Google, because people are searching out and they're thinking about selling their sushi, everyone searches on Google. Zillow's great too, but from what I'm hearing, Google's kind of the best, most effective. People are looking up, and when I'm looking at top, agents around here, they have the most Google reviews. So that's what I'm gonna start doing more, so is sending out to Google. And I wish Zillow, you could just copy and paste, but it has to be sent direct, but.
No, you can copy and paste. You just need your link. So I'll get you your link, but I pretty much have almost everyone's link. So if you don't have it, just shoot me a text and I'll send it to you. Pretty much I figured out how to find your quick link so you could send it out and say, give me a review. And so then they still have to make a Zillow account. They still have to certify that you did represent them on the transaction.
So if they already did a Google review, then you get that link, copy and paste it, and they just have to make the account.
So another avenue I used to do, I don't have time to anymore, is if a person gave me a review on one, I'd make with the extra emails another account and just plug in their password. I used to get paid to even give people reviews. So yes, Maggie has boatloads of emails created.
Yeah, and I don't think there's, if client reviews are, even if it's a year after you weren't doing this last year, I think it's always good. I just started doing this 2 weeks ago, sending out, past clients, like getting reviews. They go a long ways. People want to see real people and their, real testimonies. So I think it's a huge deal. So I always think it's within the first couple days of closing is best, but if you haven't done it in the past, like I've been consistent with it, send them out, say, hey, I'm just trying to get some client reviews. So yeah, any other ideas or questions around this? For the next one. Time delay and effort and sacrifice. The first two that we just went over, a lot of that has to do with the conversations and so forth. These two kind of changed my way of going about the services I provide to sellers and buyers, especially sellers. And we can get into that and love your guys' ideas too as well. So time delay and effort and sacrifice, we're trying to decrease this as much as possible. So time delay is how long will this take, right? Less time equals higher value. Reducing the time delay is one of the most underrated ways to provide value. If you enter a competitive market with a product that will help customers achieve the same dream in half the time, you'll win. Great example is the fitness industry. Why is liposuction so much more than a gym membership? It's because it's quick and it's easy, right? People want it quick and hassle free, and that's why they will pay more for that to be quicker and easy rather than the long route. So time delay, how can we reduce the time of getting, from a listing agreement or even previous to closing? How can we reduce that time delay? You guys have any ideas? No wrong answers.
Really, it depends on your systems.
Yeah. One thing I did, this is when I started doing inspections up front. So reducing the time delay for all my sellers, I get inspections done before we go live, or if it's a couple days after we get the report and it's on the market, it's fine. But before we accept offers, I get the inspections done up front. A lot of people are like, why would you want to give them the full story and show them what's wrong with the property and what's going to happen anyways? Like the buyer's going to come in and do their own inspections. So why not get it done up front, reduce the time delay? The other side of it is negotiations too, right? The worst case scenario, which we all go through, is representing a seller. We get into escrow, we agree on a $300,000 purchase price. We get into escrow, buyers do their inspections. They get the whole story, they request repairs, or they'll try to negotiate a purchase price we already agreed upon. And that's the worst case scenario for a seller, is now we're backtracking, right? And that's why I do inspections up front for my sellers. I just pay it up front, $400. But it tells the whole story. And then, as we get offers, if you have multiple offers, I make sure everyone sees the inspection. Hey, this is the story behind it. We want to stick to our purchase price, of course. any buyer still has the right to do their own inspections. But this reduces the time delay, controlling negotiations, and that's why I do it up front. Another idea too as well is time delay, and just, once we get an escrow and we get an offer accepted, I want that to be as seamless as possible for our sellers. So I get disclosures done right away. I'll usually, before we even accept an offer, I'll have disclosures done. Just so like when we hit escrow, the seller doesn't have to worry about, hopefully all they have to worry about is signing with the notary, right?
Do you
So-
make repairs after you get the inspections done? Do you suggest what they should fix?
If there's like minor items, like if we're talking about like outlets and stuff, I'll just get my handyman to go out there and do it. Obviously, you have to fit that within your budget. Like Connie's told me a story where she's paid thousands of dollars for her client's remodel. And obviously you gotta make sure it's within your budget, of course. And then also, I'm only gonna do that for clients as far as repairs, if like I'm confident they're gonna stick to my strategy. And they're not gonna back out by any means, right? You're not gonna spend money on something where they're wishy-washy, right? Then you're out of money if it cancels. So I had a escrow in Atascadero last year. It was a divorced couple. And I probably paid $4,000 or $5,000 and getting inspections and then some repairs up front. And it was kind of lesson learned by me. The husband ended up backing out, got in a big old fight, even after I got him above asking purchase price. And I lost out on my money. So that was kind of a turning table last year for me. It's like, I shouldn't be doing this for everybody. So
Do you put it in contract, like if it doesn't go through, they'll reimburse you? Anything like
I
that?
should have. I didn't do that. That's what I would do now. Haven't had a transaction where I've spent thousands of dollars since then. For like inspections, it's obviously it has to go through your budget, but a couple $100 I'm not worried about. And
You won't like share a termite report that says they have termites with a buyer without it being taken care of, or you will?
I'll show it, even with, depending on the price, right? You just gotta really evaluate, how confident are you that this is gonna get to the finish line with your clients, and also fit within your budget. So like I've done, termite repairs and such for clients. It just really just comes down to fitting in your budget and really evaluating how confident. If I have a client that's already pushing me on price, or maybe they're being a little bit of hassle, not agreeing with everything I said, and I'm not gonna spend thousands of dollars going into an escrow where it's wishy-washy, So I've learned the hard way through that. But it's all about just trying to alleviate as much stress and things. And so as far as time delay, that's why I do inspections up front, get disclosures up front. Do you guys have any ideas? I'd love to learn from you guys. Do you guys have any ideas? Time delay of getting things done in advance, or maybe that you guys do?
Well, like what you did, I usually try to make sure to have the solar ones and
Yeah.
NHDs as well ahead of time, but every now and then it's been an issue where the other agents didn't have it ahead of time.
Yeah. And solar is big too, because we've all dealt with solar, and most houses, especially newer ones, right, have solar, and that seems like it's the last thing to get transferred. And I've dealt with a lot of transactions where it's comes down to the solar agreement, last thing we need to do. So the more you can jump ahead and get things done in advance, the smoother it'll be for your clients and for you, not having to have those tough conversations, right? And it just goes into preparing in advance. You want to go in prepared to any listing agreement or buyer's consultation. Figure out what's important to them, what their budget is, and just evaluating how you could, alleviate as much stuff in advance so it's as smooth as possible during that scale fight. Effort and sacrifice. So how much work will this take? Less work equals higher value. Take on as much responsibility as you can to reduce the clutter and effort on their behalf. Most people, I put quote unquote lazy, I think it's a bad word, but they're willing to pay more for less work they have to do. So I tell a lot of my clients, pretty standard. You're going to a listing agreement, most agents will say, we'll walk through the house, and they'll give you a long list of items, say, you need this done, this done, this done, this done. And then they'll be like, all right, we'll come back in a few weeks, see if you got them done, right? I hate leaving any items for my sellers or clients to take care of on their own, because more likely than not, they're dealing with the stress anyways. It's probably not gonna get done in that time, and that's just gonna prolong this whole process. So, depending on the work that needs to be done, I always tell them, other agents are gonna give you this long list of items. If If it needs landscaping, I have a landscaper, which goes into like the resource page of, you know, my handyman, contractor, you know, landscape guy, whatever needs to be done, you know, I'll send my guys out there, you know, if they're willing to get it done. I may cover the cost for it if it makes sense, obviously, you know, if you're gonna make an $8,000 check on a commission, you gotta really take that into account too, what you're spending and so forth. That's why I tell them, hey, these are the list of items other people are gonna tell you you need to get done, and they're gonna come back and mute you. Let's get them done now while we're ahead of the game. And provide that service so they could just tackle as much ahead of the ranks, right? Other side of effort and sacrifice too as well is, especially with first time home buyers is, there's a reason they haven't made this move, you know, prior to this conversation, right? Especially they've been talking about it for a while, so they're gonna have to they're gonna have to sacrifice something of what they've been doing to achieve what they wanna do now. Cause more likely than not, especially with first time home buyers, it's like, you gotta sacrifice, you can't go get that truck right away or anytime soon, right? Or maybe you need to cut your credit card, you know, payments, you know, and get that caught up. So those conversations are super important too, cause, you know, if this was something you really wanna do for this long, you would have done it already, but your actions haven't met, you know, the standards to get it done, so. Tough conversations, but honest conversations that I feel like most agents probably won't have or scared to have, but it's like, hey, we gotta change something here. I'll help with the effort here, but you're gonna have to sacrifice something in order to get this done that you haven't done, you know, since you've been wanting to make this move, right? It's a tough conversation, but definitely worth having, if that makes sense. Any questions regarding these two or ideas, guys?
No, I would just like to hear you talk a little bit about, pricing strategies.
Yeah,
And the person that always wants to hit a home run because their neighbor down the street sold for this, or their brother-in-law told them it's this.
yeah,
You know, and we know four people are coming to listing appointments and talking to them, and they'll tell them anything.
yep.
How do you get them right?
Exactly, so, and that goes into the part of like, you know, the amount of work I'm willing to do is gonna be based on how, you know, they're willing to follow my strategy and stuff, so. The listing packet that Rocky, Jackie, you guys made has the same pitch that I give on my listings, and it's a chart. And it says, you know, the top is market value, and it goes 10% under, 15% under. So what I tell my clients is, hey, the idea is we're trying to create as much traction upfront as possible. The worst thing that both of us would happen here is we get a month down the line, we have to price reduce. I don't like doing that. I don't like talking to you guys about doing that. I don't want to do it. So how do we create as much traction up front? It's pricing it right, especially in a market where buyers are limited. You know, interest rates are higher right now, so it's very crucial that the first 2 weeks we get as much traction as possible. And this is why I like pricing things 10% under market value. I mean, really, in all reality, as low as they're willing to go, I will price it. I'm not worried, because no matter what, the purchase price will end up being what it is, right? The value on the property is what someone's willing to pay for it, not what your neighbor sold, not what your uncle's saying it's worth. It's what someone's willing to pay for it. And you gotta be confident and say, hey, I do this for a living, and this is what I believe is right. And I've turned down listings that where people want to list too high, because I mean, I don't list a home just to put a sign out front, and there'll be a lot of people out there that they just want to sign up front and look like they're doing business, and it'll sit for 6 months or a year. That's a headache for me, it's a headache for the seller, that's the last position that I want to be in. So I tell them, like, my whole job here is to get this thing sold as quick as possible for you guys and seamless as possible. I'm not here to buy your listing, and I tell them too, I'm like, please interview other agents, and I tell them that this is a big decision for you guys. And be wary, other agents will come here and tell you exactly what you want to hear for whatever price you want to hear. They're not going to give you their opinion. Maybe they don't even have an opinion. They're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. And 9 out of 10 times it doesn't get the job. So we're not back in 2020 where you list anything for whatever price and know that you're going to get it, right? Because they're giving out free money. It's a different market, and you know, having that conversation of, some people still think we're back in 2020 for some reason. They're like, hey, we could list it here, we'll get that there. All right, well, we could shoot for the moon and hope for one offer, or we could price it right here and hope for multiple offers. What happens when we get multiple offers? we get to leverage everybody. So then we get to get them all up, even more than what they've offered. So that's my goal going into listing houses is I want multiple offers in this house, not just one. And especially in a market where there's fewer buyers, we have to market it right or price it right in order to get, multiple offers or the offer we want. So that's the kind of the conversation that I have. And like I said, I've turned down listings where they just want to list too high and they end up going to another realtor and listing at whatever price they want. And, hopefully they sell for their case, but most often than not, we see how this market works. It'll sit, things sit damn near on average 3 months anyways right now, and so it's super crucial to list at the price you feel confident in. That's a tough conversation because it's not what they want to hear, but with my experience, they respect you a lot more for being transparent and telling them, hey, I'm not here to buy your listing. I don't need your business. I want to help you get to the finish line. I'd love nothing more. But if we don't go about it the way I believe, then it's gonna be tough. I'm not here just to buy your listing, because most agents, not most, but a lot of agents will do that. So prep them in advance. And just telling them, often they won't even go interview, but having that conversation, being confident in your presentation and what you do, and just telling them, hey, this is a huge decision for you. Go interview someone else. Like, please, this your family needs to feel comfortable, and then after you get done with them, bring me back and we can talk again. And I think a misconception is a lot of agents have is like you're going in and you're getting interviewed rather than I'm interviewing them as well to see if they're a good fit for me. And having that mindset goes a long ways, and you sound less salesy too. They'll see that you have the best interests at heart, and you're not just trying to put a sign out front for your own benefits. Like, no, I want to get this thing sold. I want to get it sold as quick as possible, as seamless as possible. So having that confidence goes a long ways, and just being transparent as possible with people. The last slide we had there, it's people realize once you get to the bottom of what their needs are, what this means to their family outside of just selling a home, they realize you have their best interests at heart. And it goes a long ways, and I think that's probably the best feeling I've gotten from a lot of my clients is like, now we see like you actually care about everything going on rather than most agents will come in, talk about price, talk about commissions. And once you get through all of these things and go through them, I don't ever talk commissions up front. But very, very, very often, or little often that I've had where commissions is a problem. That's why I charge 3.5% for listings. Because I feel so confident in you that you get the job done. They have your best interest at heart. You can charge them, whatever you want, and they'll feel good about it. And if commission is a problem, and you want to go hire a lead broker just to throw it on the MLS and never talk to you for 1%, and go for it. I don't argue. So having that mindset, you're interviewing them too. You're not just interviewing you on these listing presentations. Any other questions on that? That's a great question.
Next slide.
Yeah. So that's in a sense that's the value equation. Bring in as much value as possible, and just to kind of circle back to that, just going into every situation as prepped as possible, whether it's a buyer or a seller. I always I get Zillow leads now, and I bring a whole package. If it's an investor, I'll bring rent comps throughout the area. Rentometer is good for rent comps if you guys are looking for rental comps. But bringing as much value, leaving a packet with them, even if it's your first, or especially if it's your first time meeting them, just be prepared as much as possible. And that'll be the difference from you and the rest of the agents, I feel like. I got one more slide too. Do you guys have any questions or any ideas, that you guys do for your clients, maybe, to kind of help alleviate the stress or anything like that?
For the listing packet, do you use just a generic one, or do you have how they have some of the templates where there's one page that's specifically all about that property and that owner, so each time it's personalized?
Yeah, no, not in the first presentation. So I've been doing real estate at the coast, and obviously it's a little different when you're dealing with multi-million-dollar properties, but they're pretty much standard out there. It's a multiple interview process, and even here too as well. You'll meet with them initially, and they may not be ready to list next month. more often than not, they're not ready to do that, right? So I don't ever get into pricing up front unless I know, hey, this is a fire sale, they're ready to go. I don't bring up pricing up front. I'm prepared to have that conversation if need be and it turns into a fire sale. But I don't ever bring up pricing and I don't bring up a commission because it's beside the fact. Only unless I know it's a fire sale and they're ready to go. Being prepared for those conversations is great, but I don't, because what you're doing once you bring up stuff like that and they're not necessarily ready the next month, you're just bringing up objections, that aren't even necessary right now. Because the market's gonna change, the market could very well change in 3 months. I mean, we know it probably won't, but it very well could, something could happen in the neighborhood, right, or, so there's no point of bringing up extra objections, that could be objections, until they're absolutely ready. So, as far as that, those conversations, I just hold off on that and bring a standard listing packet about me. I'll throw in the chart of how I like to price homes, but we won't get into that in the first meeting, so, yeah.
So your first meeting is usually a get to know you meeting?
Yeah, get to know me, what I do, what I've been doing, like I said, unless it's a fire sale, then I'll go prepared with everything. And I'll still have, that prepared if need be, but, I also, outside of giving them a listing packet that I leave with them, I have a presentation on my laptop that I'll bring that goes deeper into how I strategize and MLS, and I go over the market a little bit more. So I go over that with them in person on my laptop or iPad, and then I leave the packet with them. That's something most agents out on the coast have done, top agents. I'll go and interview with someone and they already got 3 listing packets on the table. So it's something that I've learned out there. It's a mandatory thing because, I mean, if they're interviewing, they're going to forget about you more likely than not. So you want to leave them something that they can remember you by, and then my laptop, I'll go more deeper about my pricing strategy and stuff. So.
And did you ever get fancy with like your listing presentation? Like I've heard of people wanting to turn it into a booklet, like a magazine, others that put it into just those clear slips, and others that would print it on fancier paper.
I don't like giving just like normal paper, so it'll be a little quality, but I'm not gonna go spend $40 on a listing packet by any means. But I like it to look good and presentable, rather than just on a little sheet of paper. So it's presentable, but I don't go above and beyond to make it look extraordinary, unless it's, a top client that's a couple $1 million or $1 million. Well, they're gonna respect that luxury, service and the feel of it, so. Depending on the situation, but I don't get super creative with it. Something, full packet.
So offhand, how often do you print up your listing packets? Do you already have some on hand, or do you like?
Yeah, I have it in hand. Rocky helped me set that up too as well. So it's printable whenever I want. My presentation on my laptop is just always there. But yeah, I have it ready. I can print out whenever I want. And then when it comes to like pricing strategy, obviously printing out a CMA and then doing your neighborhood, due diligence. That'll come when it's time to go over pricing and stuff. So I don't print that necessarily, depending on the conversation, how ready they are. So like I said, try to wait on the pricing and all that until probably the second or maybe even third interview. I've done interviews for clients out of the coast where it took 5 interviews to get the listing. They're interviewing a bunch of different people, and they take time to think about it, and it's taken 5 times to finally come on board, which is good. So yeah, I try to keep it basic at first, just about me and how I do business, and then coming in interviews will get into pricing and commissions.
And with buyer consultations, do you do those before they get pre-approved, or do you always wait until they get pre-approved first?
I do them right away. We can start working them, because I mean, no matter what, you're looking to try to get this client long term, no matter what. So if they're in the process of getting pre-qual, I would still go meet with them. I met a guy yesterday, a buyer he got pre-qual last year, but he's trying to switch jobs, trying to get pre-qual. So I met with him and his mom, who also might be going on title, and I gave him the same buyer's packet. Hooked him up with a lender then. So same thing for buyers. I bring it all up front.
And with the buyers, do you try to get them in to meet with you at the office, or do you go meet them at the house first? What's your usual?
I typically like doing it, at the office, I could go, whatever's really convenient for them, and obviously looking at your schedule, but, I mean. I'm like, I get Zillow leads now too, so the way Zillow works, they want to be at the house, which I've never really done before, so that's kind of new to me, cause I don't like wasting my time, but you also gotta look at it, you're trying to gain this client long term, no matter what, even if it's 6 months down the road. So no matter what, just being prepared as if they're ready to go, and you'd be, I mean, I think we've all seen, it's crazy how little people know if you're not in the industry. So just like showing the process, my buyer's packet has, the escrow process from A to Z and how it plays out. And most agents and buyers, they just don't give them that information up front, and it stands out, and you're not doing but just printing out some paperwork for them, so the little things go a long way in this industry. Ever since 2020, we had a big influx of agents coming on. It's so easy to do real estate, right? But last year, 30 or was it 42% of agents quit last year. I think it just goes to show the people that are doing the little things, they're staying in business, right? So it's all those little things that,
I don't think 2020 was easy, it was hard, it was like 12 offers, you had
Yeah.
to break it down on a chart.
it was a mess.
horrible.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Hard for me.
Yeah.
Spreadsheets.
I guess,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was easy to get offers, it made a lot more big.
A lot of business, but it wasn't easy, especially with like, showings and, COVID and all that. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't the wrong word.
The listing had to have booties and the hand sanitizer in the speed form.
Yeah. I figured we'd go over this too, kind of a closer framework. Pretty basic. I'm sure you guys heard of some of these, but the previous equation, I've always had the outcome in front of me. I've done cold calls a lot in my career. And whether it's a cold call or just that first conversation with the seller, I've had that equation out in hand just to remind myself what I'm looking for and to dig deeper with people. If you're having a random conversation on the phone and you're just trying to get to like, typically your brain just wants to get to like, all right, when are we gonna start showing homes, or when can we do a listing, right? It's like you need to uncover that onion as much as possible. So this is a framework that I also go by. I'm not exactly sure where I got this from a while back, but closer. So clarify their purpose, understand the prospect's goals, and set the conversation's context to align expectations. I feel like that's a big thing too, just prepping them on the worst case scenario too, and everything, giving them as much prep and having those conversations as much as possible in advance. It goes so much further. It makes your job easier, so they're not caught off guard when things may go south, right? And it's a lot easier. So being prepped and setting expectations is huge, especially in this industry where we're selling, their biggest financial decision of their lifetime, right? So label their problem, identify the prospect's specific problem, relate to their situation. Related to a situation, you give stories of maybe you've helped clients similar, or if you know somebody that you've heard stories, relate to them. Establish yourself as a knowledgeable and empathetic advisor. I don't call myself a real estate agent. I've just gone by a real estate advisor because I'm here to advise you on a situation. Most importantly, we just want what's best for you and your family. So I'm here to advise. I am an agent and I can help you sell, but I'm here to advise you first on the path you should go. And that goes along with giving, every option too as well. When I first moved out to the coast, I was doing a lot of like wholesale deals, a lot of cash deals. And then when I learned this, just while I got myself established out there, when I learned about this equation, I was like, why am I limiting all these people to just a wholesale deal when I could be having the same conversation about retail? And there's, even outside of retail and cash deals, there's also, you can pull equity out of your house. If you absolutely love your house and you don't want to move, but you're in a tight situation, present that too. And that'll gain credibility and good word about you in the long term. So I'm never thinking about just to sell. So I give them all those options. We could do a cash deal if it even makes sense, obviously. There's the retail side where you hit the market with it. Or if you just need the money, you could pull a HELOC or a HELOAN out as well. So giving them all the options, and you can know in your head what's the best for them. But just give them the options and explain each one. But really, they'll pick the right decision because it'll make sense, and you can guide them through that. You can tell them your honest opinion too. I think this is the route I would go if I were in your shoes, and go from there. Overview past pain. Discuss the prospect's past challenges related to the problem. Highlight these issues to emphasize the urgency for a situation or solution. So it's fine. The first conversation, you should uncover what their pain points are, why they want to move, or why they need to sell. And like I said, in the beginning of this, just reminding them of those pain points, and why they're doing this. As career goes on, they're stressed, a lot of things are going on. They forget about why they're doing the thing. So just reminding them of their pain points, and their dreams is crucial throughout the entire escrow process. Selling the vacation, present the solution as effective and desirable for addressing the prospect's problem and relieving their pain points. Same thing, just selling them on that vacation, their dream outcome here. And I ask them straight up, what's your dream outcome here? In a perfect world, and that's kind of something I've used for any objection handler. I used a magic stick, so it's like if I had a magic wand, I could, and there was no interest rate problems right now. And if there was a financial advantage of you doing something sooner rather than later, would you do it? And then if they say, yeah, if this wasn't the problem, I'd do it, and then I'd set the, get in front. I'd work best. I think everyone probably works best getting in front of them, because people see your true character. So, any objections? I know it's kind of off topic, but I use a magic wand. But hey, if I could wave a magic wand and that thing isn't a problem no more, would you consider doing something sooner rather than later? And then you're able to set the appointment and get in front of them and then go over everything thoroughly. That beginning conversation, a lot of people kind of get into, oh, this is what the market is, this is blah, 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 blah. I try to limit that as much as possible. What I'm trying to do is uncover why you need to sell, if you need to sell, or why you want to buy. I just uncover their whole situation, and then I just try to get in front of them. And that's when I could work the most effective. So Magic Wand's a great objection handler. And then, if it's a timing issue, a lot of people are kind of just scared and stuff. It's like, hey, if there was a financial advantage of doing something sooner rather than later, would you be open to it? A lot of people are like, there isn't a financial advantage of doing something right now, and the market's the way it is. But I'm just saying that there was, and there is financial advantage of doing something sooner. If you're buying right now, this market, there's very little buyers, so we have a lot more negotiating room. And I don't really get into all of those, but that's what I bring to our appointment. Or if you're selling, there's just not a lot of buyers, but it's a seller's market. There's very little competition right now. If you want to wait till the market comes back and before your neighbors are selling, again, I don't get into that in the first call because it doesn't want to seem like it's an argument. But I'm just asking questions to uncover everything, and then at least getting them open to meet them for 20 minutes. Explain away their concerns, address the prospect's objections and concerns, reassure and clarify doubts to build confidence in the solution. This is something that I would do in person. You could explain, hey, if this wasn't an issue, like I said, would you be open to it? I've always just tried to, you don't want to object to them over the phone, because first off, it's a phone call, and especially if they're newer to you, they think it's a tug of war. You don't want that. Just try to alleviate that objection of, hey, this wasn't a problem, would you be open to doing business? Yeah, okay, well, let's just talk about it, and then set the appointment. And then lastly, reinforce their decision. So ensure the prospect feels confident, committed, reiterate the benefits, and confirm their decision is to proceed. So just reinforce them, hey, you're making a great move here. Whether it happens now in 6 months, I applaud you for even, being willing to make this move. This is a huge financial decision for you. Just being open to it, I'm proud of you, and it makes sense to me, so we can talk about it. All right, so.
Austin, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, kind of going backwards a little bit, how you say you have listing appointments in front of you rather than you going out to them most of the time. Has that ever backfired for you? And you put a lot of time and effort in it, and then you get out to the place, and you're like, whoa, this is not what I expected. And
yeah. I should have clarified that. So listings, I will meet them at their property.
Okay.
I've done some clients, the house is a mess and they're just don't want to meet there, which is fine. I also can't really give you an accurate price point or get too much in details without seeing it myself. So listings, I always try to meet them at their property. Buyers, I'm willing to meet in my office, or even go meet them at their house. Or at a property if you feel confident they give people, you don't wanna waste your time, but yeah, listings I always try to get at their house.
Do you have them sign a physical listing agreement? Do you bring that, or do you just always
I
make them
always,
sign?
great question, I always bring a listing agreement, but I don't present it to them. So I just bring the packet, as soon as they see a listing agreement, they're feeling like their backs against the corner, so I don't show them a listing agreement, I even tell them, hey, I'm not gonna bring a listing agreement with me. For this meeting, I just wanna show you what I do and see if we could work together on this. I'll bring it in my car, just in case they're ready to
They're
go.
like, let's sign.
But more often than not, you're just establishing yourself in a relationship with them on that first meeting. Obviously there's fire sales and so forth, but I would bring it and I'd leave it in the car. So, great question.
I used to hear of others that they would leave it with them, cause they felt if a person saw the listing agreement, at least one time, even if it was blank, they weren't so scared when they were gonna see it to actually sign. Like psychology wise, on certain, like a CS personality, they felt it actually helped them by giving it to them, letting them
Some
see it.
people wanna read the whole thing. first.
Yeah, I've had a couple scenarios where they just wanted to see it, and I think or maybe twice I've done that, but I'm not gonna like fill out the commissions
No.
or the price point, so it's really gonna be a blank copy if I do that. I don't do that often, cause it's just gonna be blank, but they're like, hey, I just wanna see what a listing agreement looks like, well, sure, here, this is what it is, and we get in the details of all of it later, right?
Yeah.
So. Do you guys have any other questions or anything you guys do? Ideas?
No, I kind of like what you were saying about, in a listing presentation of meeting at the property. The only other factors that I've come across is when the property that we're trying to sell is like a rental property, where the tenants can't give us access to the property, so at that point,
Yeah.
my comps are gonna resemble, great, great presentation and
Yeah.
Keith's work. So that's when I established, hey, listen, this is basically my baseline as far as pricing right now, because obviously, until I get to the property and actually inspect it, we can see if we're up here, or we're in the middle, or we're kind of down here. So we wanna establish that already before we get there. That way, you're not committing to a high price
Yeah.
without the property.
Yep, you could always, yeah, that's perfect, you could always just give them a range, but hey, this without seeing it, obviously I can't give you an exact price point where I feel comfortable at. I always do try, like if it's with a property management, I just did this a couple weeks ago where I was able to get in with the tenants in advance, and then I met with the seller, and I think I even did give her kind of a range what we're looking at. But the more you can uncover, like, when's the last time you've seen the property, the condition of it, is the AC blown out, is it need a new roof, anything you can give me will help with that pricing point, when it comes to investment property, so. But yeah, that's a great point, you could always just give a range, I just always try to not have the pricing conversation as much as possible, but some people are say, I just need a price, I didn't know what I'm working with here, you can make sense of it, right? And you can do that, just varies a lot, so you could give a range, yeah.
What I do is I mail out the listing agreement. And then, I let them know that I'll be mailing it out.
Like a physical copy mail, yes,
And then I said, go ahead and review it, and if you have any questions, write them down, and we'll talk about them when I get there. And I know normally, the objections are gonna be the commission, that's basically.
Do you put in your commission, do you?
Yeah,
like-
and I've charged 7.5.
go, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great point, every conversation I have, I always end with, especially if you're talking to, the husband and maybe the wife's not on the call, what do you think your wife will think about this, right? You wanna know who the decision makers are, and then try to see, where they both stand, and
You
then.
want them there, I mean,
You do.
if they're not there, I'll cancel.
Yeah.
But if it's not there, then
Yeah.
you can reschedule for this, because I'm not gonna waste my time.
Mhm.
I don't know, I might seem,
It's valid.
Right,
but I coached for a lot of years, so with White Ferry, so that's how they basically.
Yeah.
You know, had us, if their decision makers are not there, cancel.
Yeah.
Always mail out your listing agreement.
I like that, I've never heard of that, that's interesting, I like that. Yeah, and just let them know too, say, hey, you know, talk to your wife, and you know, before we meet, obviously, making sure that there is a great point. I do the same, and just saying, hey, there's gonna be questions that maybe you can't think of now, can you think of anything first off that I can explain while we're here? If not, write down and jot down all the questions, because we wanna cover everything up front, so just making sure, that's a great point that I do as well. Is just making sure, because we wanna tackle everything at one time if we can.
Yeah.
We just want you guys to feel at peace with everything, so, because if they're put on the spot, it's hard to think of questions and things, you know, so. Prepping that is amazing, yeah, good job. Anything else?
No,
Cool. Well, that's all I got.
and then we'll post the slides too on In the Know, in case if anybody wants them.
Awesome, yeah. You guys ever have questions too, feel free to reach out to me, I'm an open book. And I love learning from other people and how they do business too, so I think we could all learn from each other. If you guys have any questions or ideas, you know, if you guys have my number, feel free to reach out anytime. Sound good?
Yep.
Alright. Thank you guys.